Now, Sports Talk with Broads. Here's Hunter Brody.
A bomb was dropped on the Philadelphia Eagles fans as Malcolm Jenkins is gone. He is no longer in Philadelphia. He is no longer an Eagle, and this is a guy who has created a relationship with the fans. He's a great leader in the locker room. He brings a lot to the table, not just on the field, but off the field as well. And a couple days ago, I recorded a podcast talking about how I have slowly progressed into this mindset where I would be okay if the Eagles moved on from Malcolm Jenkins. And here's the thing. When you look at the top market and how big these contracts are for the top safeties, it's too much for the Eagles down the road. 14 mil, 15 mil-ish, that's the number you are looking at when it comes to a guy like Malcolm Jenkins, who is in his mid-30s and will be through his contract. It's just not the right move. This is a hard move. It's a very emotional move, but it is the correct one. In this league, you don't get rewarded for being healthy this deep in your career. You don't get rewarded for playing 100% of the snaps and playing special teams. You just don't. It's actually a penalty based off of how many miles are on your body, based off of how many games you are playing, how many hits you receive, or how many hits you put on to another player. You do not get rewarded for what you have done in this league. That's just the nature of it. It's not like any other profession. In other professions, it's, hey, you did a great job. We will pay you and reward you for your progress that you've made. It is just not the case in this league. And with Malcolm Jenkins, you move on from him early rather than later, right? I mean, that's what we've been talking about with this team for a couple years now. Let's get rid of all the older guys. Let's get younger. Let's go through the draft. Let's attack some free agents that are in the late 20s, in that mid-20 range, and that's what they did. This is what I'm looking at right now. I'm looking at Howie Roseman and Doug Peterson executing what they said that they were going to do. They told us. They told the fans, this is what we are going to do, and they are now doing it. So this shouldn't be shocking. They get rid of Jason Peters. They get rid of Malcolm Jenkins. They sign a 27-year-old defensive tackle in Hargrave. They're doing it right in front of your eyes. So this is essentially what we were told that they are going to do. Now they just need to execute it. There's no doubt to me that they are taking a step back this year, but if you realize the process, they're taking a step back to put themselves in a better situation moving forward. This 14 mil a year that you would be paying Malcolm Jenkins, not just for, well, he would have the contract for the 7 mil that it would have been for this year, but he wanted a whole entire new reconstructed deal. When you look at what happens next offseason and the offseason after that and the offseason after that, you need to factor in that there is now $14 million to play with for the next few seasons based off of not re-signing Malcolm Jenkins for a longer term. I know what he brings to the table. He's always out there. He can play safety. He can play more in the box. He's a leader. I get it. But just because he's a leader, it doesn't mean someone else can't be a leader. And I know he's a great one. And I'm not trying to say that someone can just step in and be that guy, that same specific guy, Malcolm Jenkins. It's very hard to fill that void. And I don't think Malcolm Jenkins is going to fall off the face of the NFL earth right now next season. I think he's got a couple years left in his body, no doubt, but for where the Eagles are right now, I think it makes sense to take a step back so you can put yourself in a great position moving forward, just like what the Seattle Seahawks did. They blew up that defense. They got rid of all their guys, and they retooled, they rebuilt it. That's exactly what they did, and that's the way the Eagles are going to approach this. Now, back to the leadership qualities. I'll put it in perspective of being a teacher. Not everyone teaches the same way. And you can look at this from grade school, high school, college, professors, whatever. Teachers don't all teach the same. But at the end of the day, are they doing their job? Are they educating the youth? Are they leading by example? Are they being what they are supposed to be, but doing it in different ways? You can relate it to sports talk radio. There are so many different hosts out there, so many different personalities, so many different ways to approach sports talk radio and sports debates. That doesn't mean one's wrong and one's not wrong. Sure, some could be better than others, but that doesn't mean that there can't be leadership in this locker room just because Malcolm Jenkins is no longer in that room anymore. Guys are going to have to step up. Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham. It might have to be more of a community effort because that's how powerful Malcolm Jenkins was as a leader, as a vocal guy. Fine. But if it's still the same end result, then okay. Or maybe a guy steps up that you don't expect. Jalen Mills, for example. He has that type of swagger, that type of attitude. Maybe he develops and grooms more into a leader. Now he's on a 1-year deal, brought back into this versatile combo cornerback safety concept. When you look at the DB coach that is now with the Eagles, that was brought in from Atlanta, he has a track record of being a guy who gets these players to be so versatile. So I asked the question, what's the blueprint? Where is this team headed? Well, I think they're taking a step back for this next season, and I think you need to realize that, and that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It is a logical approach to this organization if they want to build for the next few years afterwards. They have these 10 draft picks. They're releasing some of these older veterans. And to be honest with you, it's not like they're done yet. But getting back to Jalen Mills and the DB coach that has a track record of being versatile and having guys play different positions, I think that is the strategy here. Go out and get guys that can play in so many different areas on the defensive side of the ball that you can plug and play in different spots. I think you might see a change, a little bit of a change, maybe in philosophy as well when it comes to Jim Schwartz. Not a big change. It's not going to be a totally different scheme out there. But you might see, based off of personnel, based off of bringing in new coaches and a new mindset, some tweaks here and there that will change the style of the D. It all starts with the defensive front. It all starts with Brandon Graham, Hargrave, Cox, Malik Jackson, Derek Barnett. Sure. There are still holes, and this creates another hole at safety and even brings up the question, will they draft a safety in the first round? Is it possible they go out and get the kid from LSU, and then because the draft is so deep in wide receiver, they go get a wide receiver later on? By the way, I was actually on the Sports Bash with Mike Gill from 2 to 6 on 97.3 ESPN as the news broke, as Jalen Mills was brought back, as Rodney Mcleod was brought back, as Malcolm Jenkins was released. So be on the lookout. I'm going to upload that entire conversation on my YouTube channel, on the podcasts app as well. I'm on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, so check your platforms. I think it's very interesting to hear the raw, natural live reaction as all these news stories broke, and it was really very odd to see the team make this move. I feel like it's the right move. We just don't see the Eagles making decisions like this. It felt as if they were going to get the job done. They were going to try and make it work. And they did try and make it work. They had the conversations, but they couldn't mutually agree. And I don't blame the Eagles if the number was 14, 15 mil. You can't be paying a 35-year-old safety who has this many miles on their body $15 million a year at the back end of this contract. It just can't happen that way. Does it affect the team for the right now? It does, and there are still holes. You got the corners. I mentioned bringing back Rodney Mcleod. They did that, 2 years, 12 mil. So they got Jalen Mills on the 1-year deal. They got Rodney Mcleod coming back, and I felt like they were going to bring Rodney Mcleod back. I heard it a few times. Adam Kaplan, an NFL insider, was breaking that down throughout the last few weeks, and he continued to bring up that it was a possibility. And also, speaking of Adam Kaplan, he is the co-host of Inside the Birds, and his other partner in crime is Jeff Mosher, and I thought he did a great job kind of describing how this went down. So, to call it this horrendous move that the Eagles will always regret, that's a little too harsh. Did they need to move on right now? Maybe not. But to make it seem like they will never recover as an organization and they will be totally screwed for years to come, that's a little far-fetched in my opinion. That's stretching it out. That's an emotional reaction. And I get being emotional because this guy has such a tie to the city. But when you realize the financial part of this league and the financial part of this move, It's just what it is. It was a move that made sense. You'd rather move on now than move on too late. And for everyone who has been screaming that this organization needs to go through the draft, they need to get younger, they got to find ways to get speed and get youth, this is it. This is the type of move that you are looking for. You are looking for to get rid of the older guys. Don't pay the older guys big contracts when they're in their mid-30s. It's just a logical move that sucks. It sucks, but it's not the end of the world long term. I want you to remember this. Say, next season, when they have an extra $14, $15 million to play with, the season after that, when they have $14, $15 million to play with, and the season after that, when they have $14, $15 million extra dollars to play with, when they go out and land a free agent, when they go out and make a guy a ton of money who they drafted, and then it's time to now give them a legitimate contract. It all plays a factor. It's not about the legit right now moment. This is more of, okay, what's to come in the next couple years of free agency and or paying some of the players that you drafted well. And keep in mind, you need to draft well in that spot as well. I mean, that's part of it. Draft well. You need to draft well, if you catch my point. Because when it comes to cornerbacks and when it comes to wide receivers, they haven't done the best job, so they need to make sure they do that. All right, let's take it to the phone lines here. The 24/7 Anytime hotline. The phone number is 856-442-9805. You can call in at any time and leave your opinion on any sports topics. A lot of Malcolm Jenkins talk, as it should be. Let's kick it off.
Hey, bros, it's AJ from Charlotte. The Malcolm Jenkins situation is pretty tough, but it's all part of the business when you're trying to get younger as a team. It's rough. I mean, they got Jalen Mills back at safety. Hopefully that can help it out. But with this money that they saved, though, it's like they got to go find a corner, like just a solid guy to come in. Because you can't just let him go and not add something to the secondary. But I can see why they did it. It sucks, though. Like, you can't really give a $13 million contract to a guy who's will be turning 33 by next season, but that's kind of just how it goes. It sucks, but I can see why they did it. I agree with the move.
Totally understandable. You mentioned going out and getting that corner. That had to have been done anyway. Even if Malcolm Jenkins stayed, going out and getting that cornerback, that was very much needed. So they still need to go out and get a Darius Slay. They got to go out and attack another player. I know Xavier Rhodes is a name that keeps getting thrown around because you don't have to make a trade for him. I just don't know if that's the best guy to approach. You're going to have to get creative. You need to go out and get a corner, but that was inevitable. That was going to need to happen even with Malcolm Jenkins back, and even if they did bring just Jalen Mills back, and I know they're calling him this combo versatile player right now with safety and corner, I don't know where it's going to go. I feel like at this point, they're in a position where they can go in two directions. And it's almost as if, okay, if they see a safety out there that they can go get, and I'm just going to say this name because I know he's a name at the top of the safety list. I'm not saying they're going to go out and get this guy, but I'm just using it as an example. Say the Eagles go out and get a Clinton Dix. Well, then they can use Jalen Mills at corner. Or if they do go out and they end up getting, say, a Darius Slay, well, then you can use Jalen Mills as a safety. So I feel like they're going to use Jalen Mills in that situation based off of what they can go out and acquire next. It opens the door for, okay, we don't need both of these right now. If we get one, we can use Jalen Mills in the other spot. Now, I'm not saying that's right. I'm not saying that's 100% what they are doing, but that is a way that they can approach this. I'm intrigued with Jalen Mills at safety. We talk about his ability to tackle. He always gets burnt by the double move, but if he plays soft coverage, he's able to go up and make a tackle. And Malcolm Jenkins did the same thing in the box. Now, I don't know if Jalen Mills is going to work in the box as well as Malcolm Jenkins is. Actually, I'd probably bet my mortgage that Jalen Mills isn't as effective. I'm just interested and intrigued by the way that they might utilize him. He does have the mentality, and that's the one thing that I do like about Jalen Mills. Tell me 2 years ago that I'd be having this conversation, I'd probably laugh in your face, maybe even spit in your face and say that there's no way in hell I'd be saying this stuff. But I feel like Jalen Mills has the attitude, he has the swagger, and I wonder if he was informed. Listen, Jalen, We know what you bring to the table. We love your energy. We love your mindset with this game. You have that voice. You have the playing style. Like, this is all based on the way he plays the game with that attitude that you need to have at that position, and that can translate to being a type of leader in that secondary room.
Well, first of all, thank God for the NFL, because if it wasn't for this free agency stuff, I think all sports fans would be going nuts right now. But as far as the Eagles go, I tweeted this to Philly 500 a little while ago, revolving around the Jenkins-Mcleod thing. Look, I mean, I don't care what team I follow. All I ask of my front office is give me an idea of what you're doing in order to win a championship. Don't tell me that you're going with youth and then sign a bunch of 35-year-olds. I mean, it's never going to be totally truthful, but just give me something as a fan that I can, perceive to be the truth. And say what you want about Roseman. I think he's done it here. I mean, I love Malcolm Jenkins and Jason Peters as much as everybody else, but, if the salary demands get too high, you got to cut bait. It's about loyalty to the name on the front of the jersey as opposed to the one in the back. The only reason McLeod is back is that we have zero depth at that position, but I think Howie has been a man of his word. He's building with youth, and I think he's making a concerted effort to build through the draft. I think he's one of these people that hears what fans are saying about he can't draft and he can't do this and that, and I think he's out to prove a point.
It's scary how much we say the same things. Now, that is Sean, who is a caller, a very frequent caller. It really does concern me how much we are on the same page at times because, that's a little freaky. I'm not going to lie. The one thing you touched on at the end, though, had to do with him trying to prove himself, and him meaning Howie Roseman, trying to prove himself to everyone who claims that he can't draft. That's interesting. I wonder if he does have that attitude, that screw you type attitude. I'm going to nail a lot of draft picks. And guess what? I hope he is right. Now, I've always stated that it's not as garbage as everyone claims it to be. He is not the best drafter in the world, and I can give you a bunch of draft picks that have been not great, okay? I mean, it's just as simple as that. Not great draft picks out of Howie. But I also don't think they have been as atrocious. Like, there are some really good ones in there as well. But he needs to do a better job. Let me clarify. He needs to do a better job. I'm just claiming it's not as pathetic as most people say it is. If he does have that attitude, I hope he delivers, and I hope he looks at this draft with a different mentality. I'm always questioning how much time does Howie have left, and I feel as if he feels tension. He feels heat. He feels the seat not being extremely hot. It's no Brett Brown situation, but I wonder if the flames are starting to get lit underneath the chair, so he feels a little sense of urgency when it comes to drafting well and when it comes to dialing this game plan and executing. I feel like the front office is all on the same page, though. If you understand and see the direction of this team, it's a step back this year. But once again, that doesn't mean this is the wrong way to approach a season. This is how it has to be sometimes. You need to dial it back so you can move forward within the next few years. So it's not as if they have a different type of season, it all falls on Howie Roseman. If the organization, Jeffrey Lurie, Doug Peterson, Howie Roseman, Jim Schwartz, are in the room together and claim, okay, fellas, this is what we are going to do, and it's this exact game plan, which it does sure seem like that is how it's going.
Okay, so right now, I'm currently at a mix. My day was going good because I saw that we brought back Jalen. I was like, nice, moving him to safety, that's awesome. Now it's just re-sign Malcolm. My day was then later ruined because now we have not re-signed Malcolm Jenkins and we're letting him walk. That is absolutely disrespectful to to Malcolm Jenkins from our organization, to a great leader during the Super Bowl run, absolutely disrespectful. That guy put in everything, and we gave him nothing. Disrespectful. Heartbroken.
Not disrespectful. I absolutely disagree. It is not disrespectful at all. It's part of the business. This is how it works. When you have a veteran player and he starts to get older, even though he brought a lot to the table and he still has a year or so left, it's not disrespectful. It is part of the business. That's what it is. We have been talking about for years not getting emotionally attached to these athletes and giving them deals based off of the connection. You got to realize what is best for this team. I'll tell you what's best for this team. Not signing a guy in his mid-30s to $14, $15 million a year to play at the safety position to be paid the highest in the position. It just doesn't make sense. You are hurting your team. Your job as a general manager is to put the best product on the field in a specific window. That signing would hurt this team in a window more than it would help the team. He's a good leader. You can find good leaders. Good leaders can step up. Once again, it doesn't have to be the same style as Malcolm Jenkins. That's hard to fix because guess what? He is a great leader, but it doesn't mean it's impossible to get a good message sent through an entire locker room just because you lose someone who is great at it.
Hey, what's up, Rhodes? Malcolm Jenkins, obviously, was a big contributor for the last 6 years. Definitely contributed for that Super Bowl run. I really thought that we were going to keep him, especially after we moved Mills to safety. I was just like, oh, okay, so we're just going to get rid of Mcleod and we'll exercise Jenkins' option or whatever, make him play under a new contract. Because I know Jenkins said that there was some contract issue, but I was kind of expecting that, and then I see that they're not exercising his option, and I'm still kind of in shock. I mean, it's a huge decision. I hope Howie has something up his sleeve, but I guess we're just gonna have to find out from there. All right, Broads.
It's a big decision. It is a big decision. It changes the landscape of the Eagles, but that's what was needed. I get being upset because you lose a guy that you felt a connection with. You won a Super Bowl. He was one hell of a guy for that run. And even last year, do you make the playoffs with him not being involved during that tough time? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. It changes the landscape. It changes the vibe. But you can see how some of these players are reacting. They understand. And the writing was somewhat on the wall, dating back to last year where he didn't want to be here and he didn't want to play. But he knew the contract situation wasn't going to get fixed from the jump. So when the voluntary OTAs were over, he decided to show up. He decided to ball. And he made that decision because that's the type of guy that he is. And I respect that. I really do. But the writing was on the wall. Once you realized nothing got done and no contract was extended, it felt as if, all right, there's a possibility that he might not return. So they were essentially telling us that this is the direction it was kind of heading towards. Now, they did meet and they did connect and they did communicate to try and land something. But if they were not budging, and I'm sure the Eagles lowballed, I'm not trying to make it seem like the Eagles went in there and was instantly perfect with a number that made sense, and then Malcolm Jenkins just declined it. I think the Eagles lowballed, and Malcolm Jenkins went with the high price, understanding that this would be the last chance for him to get a real payday, a big payday based off of his age. And at the end of the day, they couldn't come up with something, and that's fine. It's fine to move on and head into a different direction. It's a different era of Eagles football. You got your quarterback. Okay. You got Carson Wentz. Step one. You got your offensive line, you got your defensive line. Okay. Now it's time to find some pieces. And I think it's an ugly look right now in terms of what's going to be at corner, what's going to be at safety, because you really don't know if Jalen Mills is going to be that guy next to Rodney Mcleod. What's at linebacker? What's at wide receiver? There are questions. And I don't think all of them are going to be answered in this offseason. And that relates to where I think this organization is headed for this specific season. But it's not a doomsday scenario. This is how organizations have to be ran. This is how it works at times. Mentally prepare for that. Mentally prepare for this to be a different style of year. It is a retooling year. They specifically came out and stated that to the fans and to the media. This will be a retool. Get younger. Draft differently. Get rid of some of the older guys. Is what it is. And that doesn't mean that they're going to be a bad team. A step back for the Eagles could be a division win and a first round loss. Losing the wild card game. It could be 9-7. It could be 10-6. I mean, it could still be that. You could be a playoff team and not be a Super Bowl team. They're not going to be a Super Bowl team. Doesn't mean they can't be a playoff team, though. Their step back doesn't mean they're the Browns. It doesn't mean they're this bad team that wins 5 games a season. It's just not a Super Bowl type season right now, the way that this roster is constructed, because they got to start retooling this bad boy.
Yo, bro, this is your boy from AZ. Just calling in to give a few quick thoughts on the whole signing McLeod and Mills and then letting Jenkins go. I mean, honestly, it makes sense. I mean, obviously the team's trying to stay younger. I see a lot of people upset about Jenkins. I mean, he was playing well, playing at a high level. He probably still has another good year left in him. But let's be real, the man wanted multiple years. He's looking for a 3-4 year deal because he knows it's probably going to be his last contract. And honestly, it's better for him to go to a team that needs an in-the-box safety. Plain and simple. It hurts to say, but honestly, we needed Rodney more than we needed Jenkins. I wish him the best of luck, and I'm sure he'll land on a good team. And hopefully everybody benefits from this. Keep up good work there, bros. Love the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the call and all the support. This does, you mentioned in the box type of safety, which is pretty much a linebacker at this point, and that's what he has been playing. Let's not act like Malcolm Jenkins was the best player in the world last year either. He came out to a slow start. He had some problems. He had some issues. So did other players, specifically Fletcher Cox. There were some other guys that came out to a slow start too. Malcolm Jenkins turned it on late, and is he a safety anymore? That's the question. Is he even a safety anymore? Is he getting so much older that you are now seeing that he's not even his position anymore? I mean, doesn't that raise some sort of concern when you talk about paying him like a high safety? Would the Eagles ever spend $14 million per year for a linebacker? I'll tell you this for free. No, they wouldn't have. Now you talk about the in-the-box type safety, and that's what he pretty much played here last season, and that's what his role has been here with Jim Schwartz. What is Jim Schwartz going to do now in terms of that? That is so interesting to me. And I mentioned versatility for everyone. I'm excited. The word is excited to see this young, new Eagles football team. A lot of draft picks. I don't think Howie's done in free agency yet. You start hitting that second-tier type guys. Maybe third-tier type guys. I'm excited for this. This is a good thing as an Eagles fan. Realize that. It's a good thing to go in this direction. Get younger, draft. Pick up younger free agents.
Hey, bros. The Eagles releasing Malcolm Jenkins. This is a terrible move. Malcolm is a leader on this team. As you getting stuff from the draft, as you getting players from the draft, you need leaders. You cannot move on from Malcolm. Malcolm is a significant leader on this team that can help this secondary. And you put Jalen Mills back there. Jalen Mills, understand he plays safety. Wow, congrats. Jalen Mills cannot do it. He don't have the aggressiveness as Malcolm has. Malcolm needs to take leadership and ownership of that secondary. That is his job. Howie with them.
I'm not paying someone $15 million just because of leadership. And for next year, I'm telling you, Malcolm Jenkins will have a good year. He will be able to at least be beneficial to whatever team he goes. It's more about when he's 35, when he's 36. I'm not paying the guy $15 million per year, $14 million. And once again, I use those numbers because that's the highest paid safety type numbers, $14, $15 million per. That's where that target number is. So I'm not doing it. He has a year or so left. You'd rather give that up than be paying later on for that type of money. it's not that bad of a move just because he's a good leader. There's plenty of good leaders in the NFL, and if it takes 4 leaders to help out fix that void and fill that void of the one, then so be it. But it doesn't mean there can't be leaders inside the locker room. Lane Johnson, Fletcher Cox, come on now. Brandon Graham, why can't they lead? They absolutely can. Hey, Carson Wentz. I've even seen a little bit of some leadership out of Miles Sanders, even though he's a young guy. And by the way, the Eagles lost Jordan Howard. He went to Miami. Grugier-Hill went to Miami. But with running backs, I would have liked to have Jordan Howard back. I'm not going to cry about it, though. You got right now Miles Sanders and Boston Scott. You lost Corey Clement as well. But running backs, it's plug and play. It's plug and play. You'll be able to find someone who can run the rock and be a different type of change of pace back outside of Jordan Howard. So, I mean, that's not the worst thing in the world. There's some holes, though, that need to be fixed, and I'm sure they're going to address them. Free agency did not even start yet. I repeat, free agency did not even start yet. So there's plenty of time. There's no reason to panic. Everyone's all disgusted with Howie Roseman. Relax. Do I think this season's going to be a Super Bowl run? No. But taking a different direction now can open up that Super Bowl run in years to come. All right. I'll take that any day of the week. As long as it's executed properly. Let's see how it goes. Thank you so much for watching. Hit that thumbs up button and subscribe, and I will see you next time.